social media has done some great things, but it's also created a situation where we are just getting ourselves validated. When you're putting something out there, you're paying attention to how many people liked it. And what is a like? But it's releasing the serotonin and that's making me feel, and the dopamine that's making me feel good. And so I'm doing things that are going to get more likes. You can also hide on social media. Some of the platforms you can be anonymous. And so you can say whatever you want to say to somebody, and there's no consequence to that. There have been a few studies and articles written about, going out and meeting the trolls and the people that are really saying hateful things. And it turns out that these are like normal kind of everyday people that wouldn't dare say that what they're saying online to their neighbor, or say to somebody's face, but they'll say it sort of online. So social media's had an impact as well because we're focused on ourselves rather than caring for others. We express sympathy really well online, but empathy, that really getting to connect and understand somebody, takes more than 240 characters. It takes more than just a short post. So all of those things have been happening, unintentionally, but together has been leading to this decline. And I think, globalization is actually another thing that's been a challenge, and I'm not advocating against it, but the realization of we're not just living in our little communities anymore, in our 3-block square radius neighborhood. We are now more and more increasingly bumping into each other. In the big cities, you're living on top of each other, and that was kind of happening naturally, but now it's happening on a global scale. And you're able to interact with people that are very different from you, and we don't necessarily have the understanding on how to engage with them. And that's where, again, so you end up with more of that argumentative sort of nature, digging in your heels, my way is the right way.
It's funny hearing you talk, Rob. It reminded me of a quick story. I was working with a tech company a few years ago, and they had special interest groups, and they asked me to come in and speak to the special interest group of employees that are 40 years and older. As a tech company, so it's, a couple thousand people, but in that special interest group, it was like 50 folks. We're 40 and older, and they actually had a name for that group. They called them the silver hacks. Instead, so silver hacks. And so I'm working in there, and I'm doing the session, and an African-American gentleman, he said, he was talking about Slack and all the other technology tools and just working in an environment like that. He said, growing up, I always remember it was always on my approach and of all my friends' approach to try and find the commonalities with other people. Rather than look for the differences, what do we have in common? He says, it seems like now everyone's looking for all the ways in which they're different, and they want you to acknowledge those, almost setting up a little bit of that tension at times.
Absolutely. It's acknowledging those and just accepting it.
Yeah.
And there are things that, yes, we need to be doing that, but we need to then be equipped with the skills to understand and where things are different from each other. Ask the right questions, listen, and then make sense of it, and accept that, hey, we have different ways of going about our lives, and it doesn't necessarily make it wrong. It just makes it different.
Yeah. So let's move into what we can do to strengthen this muscle. Given there's a lot in the world we can't change, we can change us and how we choose to interact with others and think about others. What are some of those steps?
So there's within or I would say sort of sitting above the 5 steps, there's 4 big things for people to be thinking about. One is having self-awareness that you do have a choice, and to be thinking about how you're showing up, how you're engaging. The second one is to have the courage to actually do that. There's a great quote from Maya Angelou. She once said she believed that we all had empathy. We may not have the courage to display it. And so my challenge to everybody is to be courageous, to be empathetic. It's not the easiest thing to do, but it's the the right thing to do, but it's also the rewarding thing to do because you get to know more people and it enriches your life. Then the next piece of that is practice. And that's about practicing the 5 steps. So in that moment, when you're talking with somebody, dismantle your judgment. Be aware of those thoughts that might be casting aspersion, putting somebody else down that are coming into your mind. Make a choice to say something differently. So the first step is dismantling judgment. The second step is asking good questions. Make sure that you're asking broad, open questions, that you're not challenging somebody by asking why. Why is so important. We all want to know it, but it's the one that gets in most people's way. And I talk about in the book, like getting why out of your vocabulary. The third step is active listening. That's about being present, putting the phone down, putting your email, closing your laptop, and really putting your attention on the person you're talking to. And paying attention to the nonverbal cues as well as the verbal. Then the fourth step is integrating into understanding. And that is making sense that, hey, people have a different way of looking at the world. Yes, it works on the big sort of political societal issues, but even on something as basic as what's your favorite flavor of ice cream? I personally love chocolate. I don't know, Brandon, what's your favorite flavor of ice cream?
Oh, it's anything chocolate, but super, super chocolatey is my preference.
Super chocolatey. Okay, so in this case, we have something in common. And so it might be easy if the two of us were going to an ice cream store and we only had, money or caloric room for one scoop of ice cream, or we were going to share it. Might be easy for us to find something. But if you had said strawberry or vanilla or pistachio, we'd have to start to figure out, well, how are we going to reach decide, collaborate to compromise and figure out what flavor we might get that we can both enjoy. And that's an example of integrating into understanding. It's not that liking pistachio ice cream is bad. It's just a different flavor of ice cream. And let's be curious about it. Let's understand that so we can then reach a decision. And that leads into the fifth step, which is use solution imagination. So once you understand something about someone, how do you take that and use it to further the conversation, the decisions, the ideation, whatever it is that you're needing to have that empathy for? So practicing those 5 steps is that third piece. And the fourth one for people to keep in mind as well is grace and being forgiving of yourself. We're all human. I even say to, I very freely admit I'm not perfect. I have dismantling judgment is the step that I wrestle with the most. And I'm constantly coming back to like, wait, why was I about to say that? Like, why am I being judgmental in this moment? How can I say this differently? How can I, where is that thought coming from? I need to unpack that at a separate time, but how do I move forward with something else? And it's just being forgiving of myself and saying, hey, I'm trying and I'm going to try better the next time. So having that grace with yourself.